Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Here are the headlines we are tracking this evening. Israel and Iran trade fire for the fourth day. A new wave of Iranian airstrikes target Tel Aviv and Haifa. More than 220 people have died due to Israeli strikes across Iran in the last 4 days. Tehran claims 90% of them were civilians, threatened to leave the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. US President Trump hopes for a deal between Israel and Iran, even as he reiterates firm support to Tel Aviv. Reports suggest Trump rejected Israel's plans to kill Iran's supreme leader. India moves to relocate students studying in Iran's universities. 4 days since the devastating Air India plane crash, grieving families wait for bodies as DNA matching continues. 119 bodies identified so far. Mortal remains of 74 people, including former Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani, who was on the flight, returned to his family. Strong start to the week on Dalal Street. Sensex gains nearly 700 points. Nifty moves closer to 25,000. Bank stocks lead the rally. Oil prices remain firm, with Brent crude trading above the $73 mark. GST Council likely to consider replacing compensation cess with a combination of a health cess and a clean energy cess. Sources say group of ministers largely favour hiking the cess on cars and tobacco products to shore up revenue. India's unemployment rate rises to 5.6% in May. Government data shows youth unemployment in urban India is nearly 18%. West Asia, Ukraine, Trump tariffs expected to top the agenda as G7 leaders meet in Canada. Prime Minister Modi, Ukrainian President Zelensky and presidents of Brazil, South Africa, Mexico and South Korea will be attending the summit as guests. Prime Minister Modi says India and the European bloc will finalize a trade deal by year-end on his trip to Cyprus, as negotiations have gained momentum. Supreme Court advocates criticize the Enforcement Directorate for issuing summons to Arvind Datar in connection with illegal opinion giving to Rashmi Saluja in the Religare ESOP's case. The summons were withdrawn later. Advocates call the ED notice unwarranted, says it reflects a disturbing trend of executive overreach that threatens the legal profession. Heavy rains batter several districts in Maharashtra. Road, rail and air traffic disrupted in Mumbai. Met Department issues red alert for Mumbai and adjoining districts. And meet 7 Indian women soldiers who defended the borders during Operation Sindoor and pushed boundaries in their own way. A special report coming up. The top story we're tracking this evening: the decades-long simmering conflict between Israel and Iran has now escalated into a full-blown war, with both Tel Aviv and Tehran training their ballistic weapons on each other. Iran launched a fresh wave of strikes attacking Tel Aviv and the port city of Haifa, killing at least 8 people. Tehran has said that it has no intention of yielding to international calls for de-escalation. Days after Israel's surprise attack on Iran's nuclear facilities triggered the worst confrontation between the long-standing enemies. As per Iran's health ministry, over 220 people have been killed in Israeli attacks against the country, and civilians account for 90% of the total death toll. At least 70 were women and children. The intelligence chief of Iran's Revolutionary Guard and 2 generals were killed in the attacks. Israeli defense minister has warned that Tehran's residents will pay the price. Israeli authorities said that at least 14 people in the country, including children, were also killed in strikes over the weekend. Israel's military said it had hit more than 80 targets in Tehran since Saturday, including the Defense Ministry headquarters. US President Donald Trump has said that he is hopeful that Israel and Iran can strike a deal. However, he has reiterated that his administration will continue its support for Israel.
Mr. President, can you give us a sense of what you're doing to try to de-escalate the situation between Iran and Israel?
Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal.
The U.S. can continue to support Israel in its defense.
We do, yeah. Thank you very much.
Israel has the right to defend itself. Iran is the principal source of regional instability, and we've always been very clear. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. We have voiced our strong concerns over Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program. A diplomatic solution remains the best way in the long run to address concerns about Iran's nuclear program.
Leaders of G7 nations have begun gathering in the Canadian Rockies. The G7 meet comes amidst heightened tensions in West Asia on the back of the Israel-Iran conflict. The protracted Russia-Ukraine war and United States tariff threat will be on the agenda as well. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to sit down with US President Donald Trump for a bilateral meeting before the summit. Prime Minister Modi will also be attending the summit as a guest and will be arriving in Canada. This evening, he is expected to discuss crucial global issues, including energy security, technology and innovation at the summit. Prime Minister Modi said that India and the European bloc will finalize a trade deal by the year end. On his trip to Cyprus, he said negotiations have gained momentum.
पिछले महीने भारत और यूके के बीच एक एम्बिशियस एफटीए पर सहमति बनी है। अब हम भारत और यूके के बीच फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट को इस साल के अंत तक संपन्न करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। इसकी नेगोशिएशन में गति आई है। इसका लाभ आप सब साथियों को अवश्य मिलेगा।
The Indian embassies in Tel Aviv and Tehran have issued advisories for Indian nationals in the region. Both the embassies have shared hotline numbers and asked the Indian nationals to stay vigilant. The Indian embassy in Iran has also advised Indians to avoid all unnecessary movements in the country. India's foreign ministry has confirmed that the Indian embassy in Iran also relocated some Indian students to safer locations within the country. Parents of some students stuck in Iran have said that they are awaiting information from the government to shift remaining students to safer areas.
अभी 12 बजे मेरी बात हुई मेरी बेटी से, मुश्किल से आधे मिनट बात हुई है। उसने बोला कि हमारी एम्बेसी वालों से मैसेज उन्होंने की थी कि हम आपको किसी सेफर जगह पर शिफ्ट करेंगे, आप रेडी रहिए, लेकिन अभी तक नहीं किया। तेहरान में से कुछ बच्चों को शिफ्ट किया गया है और जो शाहिद बीएसटी में पढ़ रहे हैं उनको कुछ को आर्मीनिया शिफ्ट किया गया है, लेकिन जो शिराज या और यूनिवर्सिटी में बच्चे हैं अभी उनको शिफ्ट नहीं किया गया है।
And staying with tensions in the Middle East, Israeli forces have killed at least 60 Palestinians in the last 24 hours. Out of these, around 17 were killed after the military shot at people who were trying to seek help at aid sites in Gaza. Medics in the region said that another 10 aid seekers were reportedly killed and more than 50 injured in southern Gaza. On to the day's market action. Sensex and Nifty started the week on a strong note, clocking all-round gains today. The market regained Friday's losses with Nifty back above the 24,900 mark. Broader markets also saw sharp recovery from intraday lows, with Nifty mid-cap index gaining more than 1,000 points. 46 out of 50 stocks ended in the green, led by financials and Reliance Industries. Crude oil prices remained largely steady, holding on to gains from Friday as the Israel-Iran conflict increased concerns over oil exports from the Middle East. The latest strikes have stoked concerns about disruptions to the Strait of Hormuz, the strait through which 20% of the world's total oil supply passes. Meanwhile, gold prices surged to the fourth straight session to hit a near two-month high. The fears of a wider regional conflict have given a boost to demand for safe haven assets. India's wholesale price index declined to a 14-month low of 0.39% for the month of May. This is the third consecutive month of decline. The drop was primarily driven by a sharp decrease in prices across key categories, including food, fuel and primary articles. India's trade deficit for May 2025 has narrowed to $21.8 billion from a 5-month high of $26.42 billion in April. This is also lower than the year-ago figure of $22.09 billion USD. Merchandise exports in May fell 2.2% on year to $39 billion, while imports fell 1.7%. The Commerce Ministry said that the exports of electronic goods and pharma surged during the month. India's unemployment rate has risen to 5.6% in May. Government data has highlighted that youth unemployment in urban India is nearly 18%. Sapna Das joins us now to explain why this is important. Sapna, take us through the data and what is the significance?
Well, the data clearly indicates that the unemployment rate has indeed risen in the country, but it's a month-on-month data. So, there is a caveat in the data report saying that this should not be treated as a secular trend. However, these are the numbers which are available for all to see, and hence these numbers are important. So, number one, from a 5.1% April indicator of the UR rate, basically the unemployment rate, it has gone up to 5.6%. What is also important is the female unemployment rate is slightly higher than the male unemployment rate. So female unemployment rate is 5.8 versus 5.6 for males. And particularly if you, and this kind of unemployment has gone up both in the rural and the urban areas. Probably the incidence of unemployment going up could be higher to an extent in the rural areas as well. We'll just come to that in a bit. Having said that, however, if you look at the youth section, that is basically the age band of 15 to 29 years, so you can consider basically the age band of around 21 years to 29 odd years. So that's where the numbers are like really high, and they have risen month on month. Numbers have been high historically, but the month on month rise is extremely sharp. So for instance, if you look at rural India, it's close to 14 odd percent. In terms of the unemployment rate among the youth, around 13.7%, and in urban India, it's above 17%, 17.2 odd percent. So a month-on-month rise and plus historically high. So that's something that needs to be watched out for. Also, consequently, if you look at the labor force participation rate, that basically indicates what percentage of the labor force is actually employed. That rate has also come down. And also the worker population rate, which is ratio, which is basically the number of people employed as per the population on that basis. So both the numbers have shown a decline. Obviously, because the unemployment rate is higher, so these numbers will show a decline. Also, if you look at the other reasons that are being mentioned in the government's report, or basically the Ministry of Statistics report, they're saying, A, of course, this should not be a secular trend. Second, they're indicating that, the seasonal shifts that have happened, particularly in rural India with the end of the Rabi harvest season, a lot of rural workers probably have moved to other tertiary services. And, in the urban areas, the decline could be because the number of casual workers has come down, and own account numbers, basically the self-employed, maybe there's a decline there, and that's why the shift is visible. So month on month, it cannot be a secular trend as per government. However, these numbers need to be kept in mind, and we need to keep a watch as to how they pan out in the coming months as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Sapna, for joining us. Let's move on and get you some news from Meta. Meta has appointed Arun Srinivas as Managing Director and Head of its India business. Srinivas will assume the role from the 1st of July. Srinivas was associated with Meta since September 2020 and looked after its advertising business in India. Sun Pharma's stock fell after the US drug regulator issued 8 observations to its Halol facility. The plant, which was inspected from June 2nd to the 13th, was under an import alert since December 2022. Meanwhile, Kirti Ganorkar will take over as Managing Director on the 1st of September. This is founder and current CMD Dilip Sanghvi stepped back to focus on strategy and the specialty portfolio. Sandeep Kataria, the global CEO of Bata Corporation, has reportedly resigned after 5 years at the helm. As per a report by the Economic Times, Kataria is likely to stay on for 6 months for a smooth leadership transition. An official announcement on the development is expected this week. Kataria became the first Indian to take over as CEO of the Switzerland-based footwear giant in 2020. India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant has stepped down from his post, marking an end to his government service. After 45 years, in a post on social media, he thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the opportunity to serve as the country's G20 Sherpa and drive key developments and reforms as well. Kant has served as the CEO of Niti Aayog from 2016 to 2022. The 1980 batch IS officer also played an instrumental role in campaigns such as Startup India, Incredible India, and Make in India. The GST Council may consider replacing compensation cess with a combination of health cess and a clean energy cess. Sources tell CNBC TV18 that the group of ministers largely favours hiking the cess on cars and tobacco products to shore up revenue. A compensation cess is an additional levy on specific goods to compensate states for loss of revenue. They are likely to have suffered when the GST regime came into existence. Timsi Jaipuria is here with the details.
Well, the upcoming GST Council meeting could consider the proposal of replacing the current compensation cess with two new cesses, health cess and clean energy cess. That's what sources indicate, but this can happen only through the GOM process. The GOM on compensation cess, currently headed by MOS Finance Pankaj Chaudhary, is likely to have its final meeting, in which sources indicate that they are likely to come to a conclusion to proposing these two new cesses. Once this proposal is finally drafted by the GOM, it will go to the GST Council as a recommendation of the GOM, upon which the Council will deliberate and then decide whether this should be the roadmap ahead, because current compensation cess is ending on 31st March 2026. The goods on which this cess will be levied, that is the two new cesses which is being proposed, will remain the same: tobacco products, aerated drinks and cars. The overall incidence after replacing the current compensation cess with these two new cesses is also, sources say, might remain the same, because the government does not want to increase the tax incidence, because these are commonly used items, and though considered as luxury or sin goods, but still overall tax incidence is likely to remain the same. Now what happens, because currently the law does not permit to introduce any new cess or any cess under the GST regime. Thus, there needs to be an amendment to bring any new cess or any cess under the GST regime via moving amendments in the Constitution Amendment Bill, which had paved the way for having a new indirect tax regime, that is GST, way back in 2017. So that needs to be amended to bring these two new cesses. Now what is to be seen, whether government decides to chart this particular path or keep these two new cesses under the indirect tax regime, just like agriculture infra development cess or road and infra cess, which is separately accounted for and not under the GST. Something that we'll have to wait and watch for.
It's been 4 days since the devastating Air India crash in Ahmedabad. The grieving families continue to wait for the bodies of their loved ones as DNA matching continues. 119 bodies have been identified so far, and the mortal remains of 74 victims have been released. This includes former Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani, who was on the flight. Home Minister Amit Shah, Gujarat Chief Minister Bhupendra Patel and senior leaders of the BJP attended Rupani's last rites in Rajkot, which was conducted with full state honours. A team from Boeing has arrived at the crash site. They will join a team of 10 officers from the US National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration. Both the black boxes have been retrieved from the aircraft. Tata Sons chairman N. Chandrasekharan told Air India employees that the crash was the most heartbreaking crisis of his career. He further emphasized the need to stay on course and be determined. My colleague Madiha Mujawar reports from Ahmedabad.
When the plane crashed and exploded, it made a loud noise, immediately alerting the residents in the area that something bad has happened. Many volunteers rushed to the spot to assist the rescue workers in pulling out bodies. One such volunteer was Sanjay Patni. Describing the tragedy, he says he didn't see any victim alive after 15 minutes of the explosion.
वो चादर लेके मेरे मुंह पे बांध के, और बंदा था, वो बंदा ने बांध के मैंने, और 5 मई के चौथे मार था, वो मैंने वहाँ पहुँच गया, तो वो बंदे को मैं लेके 3 बंदे को लेके आया, 3 बंदों को उतार के पकड़ के यहाँ उतार के नीचे आया, तो 108 में मैंने वहाँ एडमिट करके मेरा एमएलए था, एमएलए दसना बेन भी साइड में खड़े थे, और सब कार्यकर भी साथ में थे सब।
कोई जीवित था वहाँ पे जब आप गए थे? जो पैसेंजर्स थे प्लेन के जो नीचे पड़े?
सब जली हुई थी, सब जली, हाथ पकड़े तो हाथ निकल जावे, मुंह पकड़े तो मुंह निकल जावे, बहुत खराब हालत है।
Many people were in and around the area when the plane crashed and exploded. Some got trapped in the fire, while some escaped death. One such story is of Rajesh. He's a rickshaw driver. He was here in the area to drop a passenger when he saw the plane crash and exploding. He says the heat of the explosion was so intense that it forced him to run for his life.
मैं भागते भागते गिर गया तो मेरा पाँव में लगी, पाँव में लगने के बाद मैं खड़ा नहीं हो पाया, और जो धमाके के बाद जो सूखी घास भी जलने लगी थी उसमें मेरे पाँव जल गए आधे, और मेरे को लगा कि अब मैं बचूंगा कि नहीं, तो मैं रेंगते रेंगते लगभग थोड़े दूर चला गया बिल्डिंग के जो धमाके के बचने के लिए, और थोड़े दूर जाने के बाद खड़ा होने की कोशिश की तो खड़ा नहीं हो पाता था क्योंकि घुटन में मेरे को ज़्यादा लग गई थी और वापस गिरा तो मेरे को छाती में ईंट लग गई और वहीं मैं बैठने की कोशिश कर रहा था तो जैसे कोई एक्टिवा वाला निकला, एक रिक्शे वाला निकला, मैंने उनको रिक्वेस्ट किया कि भाई मेरे को बिठा लो, मेरे को बचा लो, पर कोई बचा क्योंकि खुद बचने के लिए भग रहे थे।
While some people like Rajesh escaped death, there are many others who couldn't see another day. Many bodies are still missing. Many families are still looking for a closure. In Ahmedabad with video journalist Prashant Ghuge, this is Madiha Mujawar for CNBC TV18.
All right, let's move on. A helicopter carrying pilgrims from Kedarnath crashed yesterday, killing all 7 people on board. As per preliminary analysis, the aircraft went down due to bad weather in the Rudraprayag district of Uttarakhand. This tragedy was a 5th instance on the same route in 6 weeks. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami called an urgent meeting and ordered full investigations into the matter. 4 people are dead and dozens have been injured after a bridge that was marked unsafe collapsed in Pune. The National Disaster Response Force have called off operations after rescuing 51 people. Officials have said that the iron structure collapsed after it was overcrowded by tourists who ignored the warning board at the spot. Heavy rains batter several districts in Maharashtra. The Met Department has issued a red alert for Raigad and orange alert for Mumbai and adjoining districts of Thane and Palghar. 18 people have reportedly died in rain-related incidents in the state in the last 24 hours, up to 11 a.m. this morning. A gas leak in the well of an ONGC plant in Assam's Shivsagar district has entered the 5th day. Officials have said that 70 families have been shifted to a relief camp around the area. Company director Vikram Saxena reached the spot on Saturday and a team led by him took operational control of the well. Reports have indicated that the well was not caught on fire yet and no one has been injured. Coming up on India Business Hour, 7 Indian women soldiers defended the borders during Operation Sindoor and pushed boundaries in their own way. We tell you their stories in a special report. And you can also catch all CNBC TV18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Jio Hotstar. If you're watching India Business Hour, the government has issued a notification that India's 16th census with caste enumeration will be conducted from the 1st of March in 2027. The census would be conducted in 2 phases. Phase 1 will be house listing operation, which details of housing conditions and assets will be collected. Meanwhile, the second phase of population enumeration will involve the collection of socioeconomic details. The Supreme Court advocate body has lodged its strong protest against the Enforcement Directorate for issuing summons to senior advocate Arvind Datar. The summons, which has now been withdrawn, is in relation to a legal opinion given by Datar in ESOPs issued to Rashmi Saluja. The advocates have called the ED's move coercive and unwarranted. Nearly 2 months after the brutal terror attack in Pahalgam, the Global Anti-Terror Financing Task Force has condemned the attack. The organization said the attack could not have occurred without substantial funding or support. The FATF did not name Pakistan or suspected terror organizations behind the attack. This is only the 3rd time the organization has named and condemned a specific terror attack since its inception. During Operation Sindoor, as bullets and artillery shells and drones filled the air, 7 women soldiers of the BSF safeguarded India's borders and pushed boundaries in their own way. As part of our ongoing series, Future Female Forward, CNBC TV18 Santya Gora traveled to Akhnur to meet with Assistant Commander Neha Bhandari and other women soldiers who pushed back against Pakistani forces multiple times from their forward defense positions along the international border in Jammu's Akhnur.
Jammu's Pargwal sector, just meters from the international border between India and Pakistan, 7 BSF women soldiers held their ground under fire for 72 hours during Operation Sindoor, and in doing so, they scripted history. Assistant Commandant Neha Bhandari became the first Indian woman defense officer to command a direct counter-attack against Pakistani troops who opened fire at Indian positions along the international border. AC Bhandari, who is in charge of multiple BSF posts along this sector, was also the commanding officer of this post. And what's special about this post is that it is held by 6 women soldiers under her command. This was the first women batch of Indian soldiers to engage in combat along the border.
They started a flat trajectory weapon fire, so it was like everywhere that sound of shelling was quite like evident. It was everywhere. So yes, we were living in that atmosphere, but on 10th of May when we were targeted, like specifically our posts were targeted, we opened fire from every weapon, be it flat trajectory, high trajectory. So we gave them befitting reply, and they were also forced to leave their posts in many locations.
The 6 women soldiers, 2 veterans, 4 fresh recruits struck a blow against the enemy multiple times.
Right here, just meters away from enemy positions, women soldiers led by Assistant Commandant Neha Bhandari stayed engaged with enemy troops for 72 hours. No backup, no breaks, just discipline, duty and determination. They forced the enemy to retreat from not 1 but 3 forward positions. Theirs was not just a military success. They scripted a turning point for both border security and for gender roles in combat.
Under non-stop fire, they held firm with only one thought in their minds.
कांस्टेंट ये चल रहा था कि अब फायर आया है तो फायर के जो फायर से देना है, अब पहले अपना कलीग और बाकी जनता को सेव कर लूं.
These brave women say they were offered a chance to withdraw but they declined. For them, the BSF's motto Jeevan Paryant Kartavya, duty unto death, came first.
I must say that every female who was present over here, they said that no, we will be staying here and we will be performing our duty. And I said that when I can't just leave my troops in such a situation because it's my duty to be with them every time. So how can I go back?
Assistant Commandant Bhandari credits the intense training in the BSF and the trust her superior officers repose in her and her team for this achievement.
This is our government, first of all, who just bought this policy that yes, we should be here. Second, my organization who believed in us and who supported us everywhere. And third, even my male members who believed in us that yes, we are equally capable, and they were free that in neighboring FDPs, my male members were deployed. And they were not in this thought that they will do or they will not be doing anything.
For her courage, AC Bhandari has received the Chief of Army Staff's commendation desk.
The pride, patriotism and sheer bravery reflected in the eyes of Assistant Commandant Neha Bhandari and the women soldiers brings words like valor, courage, honor, dedication and sacrifice to life. At CNBC TV18, we joined the nation to salute Assistant Commandant Neha Bhandari and the women soldiers and extend our heartfelt gratitude for their unwavering service to the nation. In Jammu, with camera person Sahiba Bhatt, this is Santya for CNBC TV18. Jai Hind.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you for watching. News continues right here on CNBC TV18.